Good evening. Not long ago, the Pentagon started asking questions about what life is like for our men and women who are at war in Iraq. And the results we have to tell you about tonight may surprise a lot of Americans. It has to do with their beliefs, their ethics and behavior, often under fire and under great stress. And as we hear these following numbers, we should all keep in mind this is an American military made up primarily of young people, all of whom have volunteered for duty, many of whom are showing the stress of their service to these United States. We begin with NBC's Jim Miklaszewski tonight at the Pentagon. Jim, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. The unrelenting combat in Iraq is sending thousands of American troops home as emotional casualties of the war. The Pentagon study found that as many as 50% of combat soldiers and Marines develop psychological problems when they come home from the war. Wounded in a mortar attack 2 years ago, Michael Walcott still suffers panic attacks.
You're shaking. You're sweating. It's almost like you're dreaming, but you're awake. You're seeing everything that you've been through.
1/3 of all combat forces suffer the most serious forms of psychological damage from post-traumatic stress or traumatic brain injury. The primary causes, multiple combat tours that are often extended for more than a year, and the intensity of the combat itself. The Pentagon's new Secretary for Health Affairs knows it firsthand. He was an Army reservist in Iraq only last year.
And I spent a lot of the time looking over my shoulder. It's a tough go over there.
But the most disturbing findings involved battlefield ethics. 1/3 of Marines support torturing a prisoner if it would protect a fellow Marine. And 60% said they would not turn in a Marine who killed or wounded innocent civilians.
These men and women have been seeing their friends injured. And I think that having that thought is normal.
But it may be more than just a thought. Dozens of soldiers and Marines have faced criminal charges in the deaths of Iraqi civilians.
The sort of misbehavior that disturbs Americans, killing civilians, mistreating civilians, and so forth, those are classic symptoms of combat stress.
The report recommends that soldiers get longer periods of time off between deployments, but the Pentagon just ordered 15-month deployments, longer deployments for all troops in Iraq. Even worse, the report warns that there may not be enough money or staff on hand to treat the growing number of casualties, psychological casualties from the war. Brian.